Hello and welcome to the Team Bus. This is the side piece podcast to our main Beyond the Slipstream show. I'm Matt Harper. I'm here with my brother Justin, and Justin is going to take the lead this week for sure uh, to get into a whole bunch of cycling stuff, I hope.
So, first, I think we should just kind of continue our discussion from the podcast about this Melissa bike. And obviously, the landscape of the Pro Peloton is starting to take shape for 2026, and we've got the transfer of Remco, and I've got some stuff that I'll bring up about that, but with these mega teams like UAE and Red Bull and Visma, are they big enough that they can have these kind of multiple discipline, situations? Okay, so obviously you've got the Coy Brennan situation, which I still believe is going to resolve itself by Coy being somewhere else. And you have the GC situation, with Jonas, and that they're going to be kind of focused on that because they've got multiple GC contenders. You know what I mean? You've got Matteo, you've got Yates, you've got Vingegaard, and to a lesser extent at this point, I think you have to put Ken Utebrooks in the conversation as well. How does a mega team, because UAE does not, while they will go for those one-day stage races and they'll mop up small race points, they don't really have a sprinter. You said it in the podcast that
They have Milano, but he hasn't really been a factor much. I think he got a win or two this year, maybe. But
yeah,
he's kind of
but
past
not
his prime.
he's not a Tim Merlier. He's not
Yeah, no, he's
a
not
Matty
even in the top.
Brennan.
He's not even in the top five conversation. Maybe the top 10.
Right. So that being the case, how does a big team balance all of those ambitions? Because obviously the biggest races are going to be the GC people for sure. It doesn't make sense for them not to be. But how do you continue to utilize a Matthew Brennan? Do you utilize him in the Grand Tours where you're not sending Jonas? Because it's like it doesn't make sense for him to be on an 8-man roster for the Tour de France if you're trying to win the GC. You know what I mean? At least not for this team trying to beat Pogacar.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So how does a team balance those things out?
I mean, I don't know. I think a lot of it comes down to the resources. That's why it's only the super teams that can consider these kinds of approaches. I wonder if we're not seeing in the super teams like an idealization of what a pro cycling team could be. Are we moving towards a future where the mid-tier teams are able to pull themselves up to have a realistic, multifaceted approach to, the year? Um, Times were you were either a sprint team or a GC team, and kind of you couldn't do both. You know what I mean? The teams that were going to the Tour de France and competing in the GC battle were not the teams that were competing in the sprint battles, I would say, for the most part. They were doing one or the other.
Well, with the exception of Team Sky.
Yeah, but I don't know. I guess they had Cavendish for a while, um, Viviani,
Yeah, I'm just saying
but
it can be done, but I don't know that in this era of racing that it's feasible to do it because I don't think you can beat Pogacar without a team that is solely dedicated to beating Pogacar.
well, yeah. So that there's sort of two questions when we're talking about these kind of teams. It's like, what are the team goals, and then and if those goals are to win lots of races, not just to win the Tour de France, but to win lots and lots and lots of races, and to be a super team, a team that no matter what race they turn up at, um, they're going to be one of the one or two strongest contenders for the win.
Well, and
They've got a guy for every race on the calendar. Do we have a guy that we can send that will be among the top two or three of the guys that all the other teams send? You know what I mean? Like no matter what, every single race. Because the small teams can't say that, but it is definitely realistic for a UAE to say, yeah, our roster is so deep that we don't care what, name a race. Okay, we can send this guy, who
okay,
who you know
okay. So if
it's going to
that's
have a realistic shot of competing for the win.
okay, so now if that is the case, okay, if that's the team approach, where does that leave a Matthew Brennan who would want to win a stage on the biggest stage in racing?
Well, I think once you get up to that level, um, with so let's say the Grand Tour level, not just
Yes,
understanding that
you
the
see
Tour de
where I'm
France
going.
is
Yes,
at the top of the triangle.
correct,
So that is the win that all riders want. Um,
correct.
but once you're at the top level of sprinting, there's a sort of nice dynamic that just naturally occurs in the world of cycling because of the nature of grand tours and the fact that it's very, very, very difficult to compete at the top level at all three grand tours in the same year. So by virtue of how difficult grand tours are, and especially how difficult the Tour de France is, the rider that you send to the Tour de France to accomplish your biggest thing, say your top sprinter, well, that means that the second sprinter on that team is going to get to be the top guy at one of the other two races at least. You know what I mean? It's like built in. So, next logical step for Matthew Brennan is he is the guy at one of the other grand tours. He's not gonna impinge on their goal to get Jonas back on the top step of the Tour de France. You know what I'm saying? They won't make that big of a sacrifice for him yet, but they will, I think, give him a shot at being the guy at a Grand Tour, pooling all the resources behind him. Go see what you can do. Go win us four stages. We feel like we have it in you. You have it in you. A guy that's tied with Tim Merlier, who's crushing this year,
One back at Tim Riller. One
or
back.
one behind Tim Merlier, essentially tied.
Yeah.
Um, is certainly worth sending to a grand tour. We just discussed it. You know what I mean? And is certainly capable of going to a grand tour and winning three stages.
Okay. So all of that being said, do you see a scenario for and I'm being very very specific in this sense. Do you see a scenario for this team, okay, with the hybrid type style sprinter that Matthew Brennan is? Do you see a scenario where with a Wout Van Aert, okay, you could bring a Matthew Brennan to the tour? All right, we said earlier, okay, you know, imagine this 8-man roster. Okay, you've got obviously Jonas at the top, you've got Matteo, you've got Sepp. All right,
Wow, Van Aert.
you put in, okay, you can put in Wout. All right, you put in Yates, you put in Ken Uterbrooks. All right, you then put in
And then Matthew Brennan.
Matthew Brennan. All right, and take your pick, Ben Tulit, one of their up and coming domestiques, all right, into this role, okay, where you could, because of his hybrid type style, where he can do those long draggy climbs, and he does have the ability to put a little bit of mountains in him. Do you see a scenario where they could bring him to the tour and have him dual role as a domestique and possibly nab a stage in a sprint somewhere along the line? And that increases obviously your exposure in the tour to not being limited just to one situation, because obviously, like you see this year, outside of the Yates win and the Van Aert win, all right, the GC is almost non-existent in the Pogacar area. So does it make sense for this team to also maybe, while this is our focus, let's also have a little bit of something else to bring to the table as well. Do you see that being a possibility?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, a lot of thoughts occur to me about this. For one, it just really intensifies my desire to see Matthew Brennan race against at least one of the big boys. I want to see him up against a Philipsen, a Merlier, a Germay, a Groenewegen, I don't know, uh, an Olav Koy, maybe. You know, I want to see him mixing it with the absolute cream of the crop because he's poised and ready for that. Because you say, does Visma sneak him on there as the eighth man to the Tour de France, knowing that he's not going to be a complete slouch in the mountains because he's got a little bit of pedigree when it starts to go uphill. But you said, and he could snatch a stage win. I think this is a guy who could snatch two or three. He's so wily. I mean, maybe that's a pipe dream thinking that he could beat a Merlier or a Philipsen, but when he wins, he freaking wins.
Well,
Like he wins. Like he wins like a
with
seasoned
authority.
pro.
With authority.
Like he's been doing it since he came out of the womb.
So here's the other thing too with a guy like Matthew Brennan. Okay, he could nab a couple of stage ones, but we talk about it on a constant basis. Look, he's 20 years old, all right, and we know that these sprinters have cycles. All right, they can't. Look, they're not all Cavendish at all. Okay, they're not people that can do it over a 20-year career. Okay, he's a freak of nature, and even in his twilight, he's only winning ones and twos. All right, it wasn't. You have to go back to 2021
Yeah,
before
21. I think they
21
won
where
all
he won
this.
multiple stages in the Tour de France.
So
So
crazy.
so so here you go. Okay. So that being said, yes. Okay, I think that there is a way for them to be able to do that, and I think it would benefit them because it does give them a better chance at more success in the tour. Because I think that this is your landscape for the tour for the foreseeable future is the Pogacar, built, UAE, trying to just keep the dominance in the foot, the foot on the gas. So I think it'll be interesting to see throughout the transfer process what happens. I also think that as far as sprinters go, I really do think that Coy is next man up. Okay. I think whoever gets Coy, I think it needs to be a team that wants to build around him because I think if he goes to the right team,
Yeah,
he could be the next Tim Merlier or Jasper Philipsen very easily. Like he looks so strong when he really gets going, and I don't think that we have gotten a chance to see what a truly focused, Olav Koy sprint team looks like.
where would it make sense for Olav Koy to go?
I mean, right off the bat, you say a Sudal, you say an Alpecin. I could see. I mean, like those are teams where you could see it happening. Red Bull doesn't make sense. The big budget teams don't make sense in my opinion. So you're looking at some middle tier team that
What about Ineos?
depends on what their ambitions are. They have the resources. It would make sense. Do they kind of switch their focus to being more classics focused and
They
sprint
have
focused?
they have no GC team.
Yeah, I mean I mean there's definitely things going on on that team. So I mean I guess I could see it. But I mean if you're all of Coy too, it's going to have to be somebody that can pay you. Like he's not going somewhere to some small team that's not going to be able to pay him.
But Ineos has money.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Ineos makes sense. I think they make more sense than a lot of places. I think, you know,
I mean, do
landing and
do
they've
does
got people
Sudal
that can
take
do
him
lead
when they
outs.
have Tim Merlier?
Say what?
Does Sudal take him when they have Tim Merlier?
It doesn't make sense, but does it make well, okay, what about a team that is has been known for sprinting in the past that doesn't have somebody currently like a Jayco, okay, Jayco Lua could, could possibly, I don't know,
But they
man.
might not have the money.
I don't know. It's tough. It's tough. That's what I mean, man. It's like, because I really do think that he's the next guy. I think he is the next guy. Right? Brennan is as good as Brennan is. I think at the highest level, I really still believe that Coy is the next guy. I
Like you
really
think
do.
Coy, you think one of these months Coy is gonna blossom into his little 2 year arc
I think given,
that all these guys get,
look, man, if you put
and then
him,
maybe and
if you put
maybe
him
2 years
behind,
after that
look,
Brendan
if you
gets
put him
his.
behind Matthew Vanderpool right now, dude, they're gonna murder. Okay, like that dude, he's a smart sprinter. He's got a lot of power, and I don't think that we have seen the best of him right now. All right. And I think that because we haven't seen the best of him, I think that's why he's very likely to leave that team. Unless they chuck a bunch of money at him and they're like, yeah, we're just, we're going to figure out how to make it work with both of you. I just don't see how it happens. I just don't see how it makes sense for him, considering that I do think that he is better than what he has produced recently. And he's won. I mean, he just won this week.
Yeah,
But when you look at it, Matthew Brennan's got more wins.
true statement.
Matthew Brennan right now for individual wins is, as far as the pro peloton is concerned, he's only behind two riders. All right. And one of them is Tadej Pogacar. All right. He happens to be behind Dusan Rajovic, who is actually number 2 from Team Solution Tech Vinny Fantini, who has 12 wins on par with Tim Merlier. But those are the only two people that that are actually beating him right now are Tadej Pogacar and Tim Merlier. All right, and I'll Olaf Koy's not in the top 10, so you have to respect the results. So it'll be very interesting to see what this team does moving forward as this landscape evolves for 2026. I think it is definitely something that we keep our finger on the pulse for.
Yeah, I mean, I like all of the sort of potential that the team has. It's like they're sort of leaning on guys that at some point in the near future we'll see their careers start to wind down, I would think.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm speaking specifically of Vingegaard, Van Aert, and Yates, um, but who right now feel like they could still reliably produce on the very highest level for this
Absolutely.
team. um, I mean, that's another thing with their GC, just their GC prospects. I mean, think about it. Vingegaard, Yates, Sepp Kuss won a Grand Tour in the past 2 years.
All right, look,
Um,
they're probably about to win another Grand Tour. All right, because when you look at the 5 riders that, and I don't really want to go into talking about the Volta right now because I think we save it for the next episode. But the reality is, there's 5 riders that can contend with him in this race. 2 of them are on UAE. All right, one of them is Felix Gall.
or Felix Gall.
I know. Look, I know. Look, Felix, you're amazing, dude. You're a great rider, but you were born in the wrong time. Look, that is the reality of the Vuelta. It is Jonas Vingegaard's race to lose at this point. All right, because the competition that's going with him is that he's going up against going to be João Almeida and Juan Ayuso. That's who he's racing against. All right, and I think that we both know that those guys are great and they can be, absolutely are GC contenders. All right, in any race that they participate in, but do we really believe that if Jonas is in full on let's go mode, that they stand a chance beating Jonas Vingegaard?
Yeah, I think what Jonas loses in terms of his fatigue, his leftover fatigue from having raced the Tour de France, he gains back in his need and desire for a win right here. I think he is going to be incredibly motivated.
Exactly. And well, dude, and don't forget that what's his name just wrecked in the Tour de France. I mean, he took a big tumble and left the
Yeah,
race.
yeah, exactly. And Jonas, to the good side, he's 2 months further down the road from his giant injury. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? His form could still be coming up at this point.
Look, and, and
Um,
and and please, it cannot be understated that Jonas Vingegaard is number 5 in UCI points. All right, for individual riders, right
yeah.
now. All right, and it doesn't feel like he's won a ton.
Well, he
Okay,
doesn't race, but he also has not raced a lot.
no,
I mean, is Jonas Vingegaard scared of Juan Ayuso or Joao Almeida? Definitely not.
I don't think
Um,
so. Yeah,
can can Jonas Vingegaard easily sit on the wheel of either of those two guys? Absolutely. The only chance that the two of them are going to have against him, assuming they're all on as good a form as they can be on right now, um, is to really, really work together to try to work him over somehow. Like, because you can see a situation where it's the three of them at the end of some of these long climbs. Um, and I think Jonas can just do the Pogachar in that situation. Just kind of sit, and whenever he's ready to make his move, go ahead and make his move. Go thermonuclear, and they're not going to keep up with you. Not on
so
the high mountains. Neither of those guys are.
and I'm gonna put a pin in this until we do our preview. All right, because I think the other thing that, and this is a point that I'm going to absolutely bring up on our next episode of Beyond the Slipstream, is here we go again with UAE. All right, we saw it in the Giro, and it did not serve them well. And here we go again, going into the Volta with 2 leaders. All right, and I get it. You gotta be able to give these guys their shot, but I'm going to be interested to see how it unfolds over 3 weeks, and if they fall into the same exact problem where they didn't focus on the rider they should have focused on when the moment presented itself. So
It
we will
definitely
see.
plays. It definitely plays into Jonas's favor.
100%.
And who are they sending to the Vuelta with Jonas? Do
I
you
don't
know?
know. That I don't know. That's why I want to put a pin on it. I'd rather talk about it once I have more facts.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right.
That's fine. Let's get into some of this other stuff.
Perfect. Okay. So let's do some. Let's just do some topical stuff. All right. Just real quick on. We were talking about transfers. Um, our boy Primus Roglic did come out finally and give some sound bites on his thoughts on Remco joining Red Bull Borough Hansgrohe. He said, quote, Remco's a special guy. He's already won some big races. Hopefully we can achieve great things together. All right. We've only just finished this year's tour. It's far too early to be making decisions about next season. So who knows what that means, but I think, again, I think it plays into the same conversation that we were just having about Visma, that you have another 3-headed monster that you are, it's what approach do they take? Do they take it as they have a hydra that they can use to attack these monster teams now, like that they have now built up their squad to be able to make a true run at this?
Okay, well let's take a look at the team. I mean, let's break it down. If they're trying to compete with the super teams, which one would argue that Red Bull is like the sort of the third team behind those two teams
One hundred percent.
in terms of the money and the quality of the riders they currently possess.
100%.
Their spending power and their roster as it stands right now. So um, so who do they have? Who are their big GC guys?
So you have obviously you have
Remco,
Remco.
yeah, Remco and Primoz. Um,
I'm sorry. Are you forgetting my favorite new rider, Florian Lipowitz, who just came in third in the Tour de France?
right. But you're talking about, okay. So who's their guy that's on the level of who is their Pogachar or Jonas?
All right.
If those teams are setting the models,
So
then
the question becomes, did they spend all the money to make that guy to be Remco, or do they go to Remco and say, listen, we've got another year maybe with with Primoz as a contender? Do we put the emphasis behind Primoz? Who knows? If I'm that team, I'm putting it behind Remco. All right, because Remco is the one that's got the fire in the belly that really wants this thing, and you convince Primoz that, look, man, we want to win a Tour de France. You know what I mean? And we need you to be able to do it. And you're at a point in your career where it's like, does it make sense for you to go to more of a domestique role that's going to help this guy win? And that's tough considering that he is the reigning Vuelta a España champion, the race that we're just about to go into.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of easy. I think Remco is definitely the no-brainer for the Tour de France captain, because Remco's been on the podium the last 2 years.
Yes.
Okay, so it's kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah.
It's like, has Primoz been on the podium of the Tour de France for the last 2 years?
Nope.
Oh, yeah.
But Florian Lipwitz took that third spot this year. So
all right, so forget about Lipwitz for now.
Oh, come on.
All right, we're just talking about their guy to compete against Pogacar and Jonas. It's obviously Remco.
It has to.
So then
you wouldn't spend the money if it's not him.
Okay, so now who is their guy to compete against Simon Yates? Who is their guy to compete against
Joao Almeida? Well, in this case, I feel like it has to be Florian Lipowitz. I think because I said it during the tour, I think you have to put Lipowitz in front of Roglic, because you've got more time. If you're going to dump resources into something, you got to dump it into Lipowitz.
Okay, so they optimize for a Lipowitz success at one of the other two Grand Tours that year. Whichever one, so it starts with Remco. So does Remco want to do two Grand Tours, or does Remco just want to target Tour de France and then, like this year, take some time off so he can dial it up for a World Championship run? Is that kind of a outlook that Remco will attach himself to? And if so, which of the other two Grand Tours is best suited for the strengths of Florian Lipowitz? Right? They figure that out, and they tell Lipowitz, okay, that's where you're going. He can't be unhappy with that, because he's on the team with Remco Evenepoel. The guy's been on Tour de France podium the past 2 years, and also his name is Remco Evenepoel. Like, Lipowitz can't get mad that they're not sending him to the Tour de France, and he can be very happy that they're sending him to one of the other Grand Tours as a team leader that suits him the best.
All right.
So,
but is the agreement that he rides in support for the tour? We're gonna you take one, maybe Primoz take the other, and you both ride in support. Because look, I don't think Remco wins the Tour de France without Florian Lipowitz. I'm going to say it right now. I think you need him. I think he is a rider that, which is one of the reasons why I think that Remco hasn't had success, is that we've talked about the fact that he rides on a team that's with split ambitions. Okay.
Is this an instance of a team of us being favorable of them taking a two-pronged approach? Send both of those guys with the from the outset saying that Remco's the guy and Lipowitz is in the domestique role, but maybe trying to manage his performance so that he is not fully burning the match every single stage. Because I feel like once it really starts to get steep in that race, it's very possible that Lipowitz could be way stronger than Remco.
I know. Well, I mean,
he's also a good TT guy.
I know. I've had to look. I'm temper. I have to temper what I say about Remco, to man, because I've walked back my comments on the fact that I don't feel that he's at the same level, but I also understand the fact that I don't believe that he has had a team that is fully dedicated to him winning a GC. He has been on a team with split ambitions, and I think that's the reason why he leaves that team. All right. he's leaving a marquee team, but he's leaving a team that is not 100% focused on him, and I think that makes sense for him. All right, 100%. So I think it remains to be seen what happens with Remco if he has a team that's completely dedicated to ushering him to the point where he can actually contend in the high mountains. He can climb, dude. Like, we know that he can win races.
Yeah, I guess he certainly didn't have that
No,
this year as Tour.
no, not at all. And I don't think he had his health.
And who are some of the other players on Red Bull? I mean, you got Jai Hindley.
Yeah, you've Jai Hindley. You've got plenty of domestiques that can help. All right, you have plenty of people on the team that can help out. I don't know. Like I said, it remains to be seen, but I think they see the writing on the wall the same way that Visma does. We just said that Visma's got 4 major climbers. You know what I'm saying? And to then bring in, some other guys that can also climb is the only way that you are going to be able to contend. Because again, I think at the end of the day that, the only way you're going to be able to beat Pogacar is to be able to put him under so much pressure that he cracks. But I don't know. It's tough. It's a tough situation for all of these teams in this era.
Yeah, and I guess the acquisition of Remco Evenepoel by this team sort of states implicitly that yes, we have GC aspirations. Certainly, a sponsor like Red Bull would love nothing more than a Tour de France win, to plaster that Red Bull logo right across the yellow jersey.
That has to be the goal. It has to be.
At the same so looking at their roster in terms of mountain domestiques, you've got Jai Hindley, as I just mentioned. You've got Florian Lipowicz, as I just mentioned. If we're talking about domestiques for Remco or Primoz, leaving those two guys out of it, you've got Jan Trotnik.
Primoz guy.
But looking across, you got Vlasov.
Mm-hmm. Victor Vlasov is a very good climber.
But looking across the rest of this roster, and maybe Nico Denz. Yeah, Nico Denz is like he'd be a Grand Tour guy. It's kind of sprint heavy because this is the team of Jordi Meus.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
This is a team of Danny Van Poppel,
who's Sam
Welsford.
All 3 of whom have had success this year.
And the Van Dyke brothers.
That's what I'm saying.
Lawrence Pithy.
That's what I'm saying. It's going to be very interesting to see how this team shapes up. Because right now you need all 5 of those guys. You need to win, to compete, in my opinion, in the Tour. You need Remco, Primoz, Hindley, Lipowicz, and Vlasov. All right, you need all 5 of those guys to be able to do it. All right, period, full stop. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. It'll be interesting. So, let's move on to a couple other things real quick. Shout out to Romain Bardet. He completed his first gravel race on Saturday and finished 10th in the UCI stage of the
Mandy, you still here?
Gravel and grit.
Open the door.
No, you can open the door. It's fine.
You didn't text me back, which is fine. I wasn't sure if you were.
Yeah. He won the UCI stage of the gravel and grit grind in Sweden, 40 seconds behind the Dutch winner Jordan Habets after 146 kilometers of racing. So Romain Bardet, has left the pro peloton, but he has got gravel ambitions, and it sounds like he's off to a good start.
Hell yeah, we love Romain Bardet.
Little controversial quote from newly retired Tim de Klerk. All right, he called out Matty Mahoric for the no holds kind of like how he's talking about how riders they don't care if they crash. So he said, I don't care if he's shouting out Matty Mahoric, saying that he doesn't care if he crashes right now. He can afford, he said, I don't care if I crash right now. I can afford to name one name one. All right. A rider that rides recklessly is what he's saying. I apologize. He said, Matty Mahoric is a rider who, like everyone else, tries to race as economically as possible. Completely understandable. But he does that by braking as late as possible in the corners, cutting everyone off, and that causes crashes. Not his own, but the riders behind him. Interesting.
Yeah, I wonder if he's referring to something in specific.
Yeah, so do I. Okay. And we've been going a little long, and I do want to wrap up by saying, giving us our UCI points standings, because it is very, very interesting this week. So this week, going through 8:15, all right, we have XDS Astana, who now has a commanding 502-point lead over Picnic Post-Anel. All right, who has expanded their lead over Intermarché to 715 points. All right, Intermarché has reduced their lead yet again, all right, for the third week running to Cofidis. They are now only leading by 1,099 points. All right, so Cofidis is 1,100 points away from knocking Intermarché into relegation. With Uno X Mobility also cutting their deficit to 238 to Cofidis. So they are also in the hunt to be able to take that 18th spot. And right now, Intermarché, it seems like it's their race to lose as far as this is concerned, because all of these other teams are making inroads each week that goes by. And they are not. They're the team that's dropping the fastest.
I mean, they have a fairly commanding lead, but
it's dropping every week.
Yeah, but it's going in the wrong direction.
Yeah. So, should be very, very interesting to see, where it all ends up. And then, I do want to just mention, just real quick, I think it's very interesting in the individual points and individual wins for the year. All right, this is going to be my last point. Top 5, all right, you have 3 riders from UAE on individual points. Pogacar, all right, then number 2, you got Mads Pedersen. Then you have two more UAE riders in João Almeida and Isaac Del Toro. All right, and rounding out your top 5, you got Jonas Vingegaard. By the way, the deficit to Pogacar is so unbelievable, it's not even funny. The difference, it is like a almost 2,000 point difference between.
I mean, he's got more than twice what the next closest guy has.
Yeah, and it's more than double what Vingegaard has at 5th. All right, in your individual wins category, Pogacar number 1. All right, and then you again have 2 UAE riders at 7 and 8 in Del Toro and Almeida, which I found very, very interesting. So that's it. That's what I got, my friend.
Well, thank you all for all your fine efforts. Wait, did you say something about this Dusan Rajovic?
I did earlier. So yeah, you have a club level rider who is actually second for wins this year, tied with Tim Merlier.
Is this a dude that won the Italian national championship or something? Or
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think
that's not an Italian name. All right. Well, we will leave it there. Thanks for tuning in, and join us again when we next jump on the bike for another ride beyond the team bus. Ale.
That was good.
The Team Bus is part of the Beyond the Slipstream family and is produced by Harperama. Find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Please like, subscribe, leave a review, and tell your friends about us. Thanks for listening. Talk to you next time. Ale!